What's up, guys? I've been making these videos lately, and I've really enjoyed the process of doing it. And I've been getting a lot of messages, and I get this in person a lot. Is people kind of want to know what do I do? Like, how do I fund all these trips? How do I travel for so long? And really, that question kind of comes down to money. It's like, how do you afford to do it? So I wanted to make this video to kind of talk about it. And the reason this comes up is because people think that they want to go travel as well. So that's kind of like you meet other people traveling, and they're like, "Oh, I'd love to keep traveling. I want to go travel around the world like you do." And I don't believe people when they say that because people say they want things all the time, and they want them on like a theoretical level of like a level of I'm laying down on my couch, and I'd hypothetically want that. Like if you asked me right now, would I want a Lamborghini? I'd say sure. Why wouldn't I want a Lamborghini? But do I actually truly desire one? No, because if I truly desired a Lamborghini, I wouldn't be traveling. I'd be working really hard so I could afford to get a Lamborghini. And that goes with a lot of things in life. We often say we want things, but we don't actually put in the effort to do them. And to me, it's like if you actually have a strong desire to do something, you're going to go do it. So that's kind of the first thing is figure out if you actually want to do what I do. Do you actually want to go travel? Or do you want to just live the lifestyle you live now? And it would be really, really nice to also go travel somewhere for a month, right? So like understand the distinction of, those two things. And a really easy method that I use, and I do this to myself all the time because, what we want happens to change often, is I ask myself, if I had $10 million in my bank account right now, what would I do? You ask this to people, and the first thing they'll do is say, I'll go buy a house, I'll get a car, I'll help out some friends or family. But then, okay, like what would you do on like a day to day basis? And for me, that answer was I wanted to go do everything. I want to travel. I want to see the world. Essentially, I want to be like James Bond without, the violent sections of it. And that's what I did, right? And then, okay, you figure out how do you fund doing what you want to do. And, doing what I want to do doesn't cost $10 million, right? It costs a lot less. So figure out what you want and then figure out how to fund it and figure out if it's actually something you really want. Because if it's actually something you really want, there's a few very easy steps you can take to just go travel the world like I did. Uh, so that's going to lead me to the second point is understanding that traveling is really, really inexpensive. And this is really hard to explain to people because, you're used to going on vacation. So you go somewhere for 2 weeks, you buy a flight that's going to be like $500. You get a hotel, you're on vacation. So you want to live it up. So you're going to be spending money left, right, and center. You're going to be going out every night. So your vacations are really expensive. But traveling full time is not the same thing. The first thing is, your flight, sure, the flight costs the same amount of money. It might be $500 round trip. It might be $1,000 round trip. But, I'm going somewhere for 3-4 months, right? So the actual allocated cost of that isn't very high. The second thing is traveling is cheap. I'm in Nicaragua right now. I'm by a small town by San Juan del Sur. I'm staying in like a really nice place right now. It's like the pool down there. You live in those, I guess, cabanas right there. There's a really nice restaurant here. I'm eating good food. There's a beautiful beach here. It's like a really nice, easy life, and I'm spending $30 a day, maybe. That's Canadian, right? Maybe 40. I'm not really counting the exact amounts, but it's inexpensive. And pretty much I already know from traveling for a long time now, $1,500 a month, I could travel around the world. And in most places, I have a really nice, lavish lifestyle. Like, I'm not skimping on anything. I'm never cooking. I'm eating food. And there's some places that are pricier. So, like, Western Europe's pricier. So, when I go there, I'm cooking more. I'm maybe packing a lunch when I go someplace. But overall, I know I could travel the world $1,500 a month. And the reason for this is something called currency arbitrage. So, if you make US dollars, Canadian dollars, pounds, euros, and you might think, oh, well, the currency is down today and stuff, but overall, they're still very valuable, compared to most of the world. And your money that you make in Western currency goes a really long way in the rest of the world. So I can take that money, I can go to, Central America now, I go to South America, go to India, I can go to Southeast Asia, and that money will just buy you so much. So cool example I'll give you guys is I was living in Bali for a few months, and in Bali, I had a house on the beach. I had my own scooter. I'd eat at restaurants for every meal. Every day, I'd either go for a yoga class or a massage. Every few days, I'd go out to the bars or a restaurant. And again, it was the same $1,500 a month. And we had people there that were older. They were living there with their families, and they all were working remotely. So they had sort of Western jobs, and they all had like median incomes. but they were living in Bali, and they all had these big mansions with pools. They had private drivers, they had nannies, they had cooks. They're hanging out at the country club. Their kids are all going to this nice private school. Their lifestyles were just really, really nice, and that's because of this currency arbitrage. So that's really the main point that I want to drill down, is that traveling is actually really, really cheap. Now, if you are paying, rent or mortgage, you're paying your car payments, and you have your life back home, and you want to add travel on top of that, that is obviously going to be expensive. But if you substitute it, which is what I did, my costs actually went down. $1,500 a month is not going to get me a lot when I'm back in Toronto, but it's going to get me a shit ton when I'm here in Nicaragua. So this is sort of like a currency arbitrage, but it's also a lifestyle arbitrage. So that's the first thing to understand. The second thing is that even when it's more expensive, so like Western Europe, if places are more expensive and there's a lot of people going there, there's a lot of travelers there, the infrastructure is there. So things are less expensive. There's more supply. Obviously, things are going to be less expensive. So even in Western Europe, you get hostels for fairly cheap. Buses to places are fairly cheap. You could fly around on Ryanair for really cheap. So even though it's pricier, the infrastructure to travel inexpensively still exists. There's a few exceptions to this. So Africa is an exception. It's underdeveloped, but it also doesn't have the infrastructure. The USA is an exception because there's no infrastructure for traveling it cheaply. But there's other ways around it. So, for instance, if you want to travel to the USA, you could do it in a camper van. If you want to travel through Africa, you get a 4x4 and overland it. And there's a lot of hacks. There's a lot of ways to do something for cheaper, but that doesn't matter. The first step is having the desire to actually do it. If that's what you want to do, you'll figure out a way to make it happen. The logistical, things are all solvable. The question is, do you want to do it? And for me, that answer was hell yeah. I wanted to do it. I got out of all my commitments, all of my payments. I don't even have a phone plan. I always get these different SIM cards. If you're friends with me, you know that you probably have like 10 numbers saved for me in your phone. But that was all part of getting out of the commitments so that I could do this, because that's what I truly, truly desired. And it's the same thing for you. If you truly desire to go travel, it isn't expensive. You can make it happen. So I'll go into a little bit about how to make it happen. Obviously, if you want to go travel long term, you need to get out of your existing recurring payments. And that means like all of them. Rent, cell phone plan, car payments, and this is what I meant by just sacrifice. So I got out of all those things. However, I sacrificed. Like I had a really nice car, right? Now when I go back to Toronto, I either like buy an old used car and then sell it, or I'll rent a car, right? And if I'm renting a car, I'm paying more than my previous car payment even cost because it's for the short term, and I'm driving, like an entry-level car. I'm not driving a nice luxury car like I was before, but I don't care, because to me that freedom and that lack of commitment is worth it, because when I'm not in Toronto, I can afford, a really nice lifestyle in other places. So that's one of the things that you got to decide if that sacrifice is okay for you. So that's in terms of, that part of the process is, yeah, you don't want to be paying $100 a month or $50 a month for your phone plan. If you're in the US, you're like $100 a month, but yeah, that's how much it costs in Canada. But yeah, if you're okay sacrificing those things, if you're okay getting out of those commitments, then travel is going to be cheap for you. And then the next step is obviously you need money to travel. And I'm going to briefly touch on this, and I'll make more videos if you guys are interested. But there's three main methods that you can do to travel. The first one is you can save up money. This is the most common way. Obviously, with a lump sum amount of money, you could travel a really long time. You could do that currency arbitrage that I talked about. There's a few negatives to that I want to go over. One is you will eventually run out of money no matter how much you have. Money is, it's meant to be spent, and it tends to go away easily. So you're eventually going to run out of money, and then you're going to think, okay, what am I going to do then? Then you have to save up money again. It's hard to save up money if you're not, back in your home country where you make good money. So it's a bit of a grind. And the other main downside of that is you're going to want your money to go longer, and you're going to end up really going on a low budget, which is possible. You could travel for very, very cheap. You could hitchhike around. You could couch surf. And I met people doing that, and I've done it sometimes for fun, but I wouldn't recommend doing that constantly, because you're going to be missing out on opportunities, right? Like I'm right now in a place where, there's a nice restaurant and they have some ceviche. I'm not going to not eat the ceviche because it's $8, and I know that I could get it for $2, or I could cook something for $2, just because, I want to experience the good stuff of traveling, right? If there's a tour somewhere, I'm going to go do the tour. I don't want to skimp out on things. And I feel like when you're traveling on a lump sum, you're constantly thinking about, okay, well, I could do this, but I could also save the money. And I don't want to be in that mindset. Uh, and the second way that you could kind of avoid that is you could work remotely. I've met a lot of people doing this. The example I gave in Bali is an example of that. And that's great because if you work remotely, you're not location dependent. And not being location dependent allows you to do this whole currency arbitrage and this whole lifestyle arbitrage. However, the downside of this is, one, you have to be in place with good internet. You're limited. You can't just go anywhere. Two, you still have a job. So, Monday through Friday or whatever it is that you're working, you have to buy the computer, not just free to do whatever you want. You can't just meet some people that are going on, a 4-day cruise on some boat that they met some guy that has a boat and they want to go scuba diving somewhere. Like, you're still limited in your options. And personally, I don't like those limits. I want to do what I want when I want it, right? If I want to go to the Amazon jungle for 3 weeks, I'm going to go to the Amazon jungle. And, if you're just working remotely, you can't do that. But the big plus side is you're not going to run out of money, and you can have a really nice lifestyle. So for me, being location independent is the first priority. That's kind of step one. But step two is being time independent. So not having your income be controlled by how many hours you work. And that will give you a lot more freedom to, do what you want when you want to do it. And really the only way to do that is to work for yourself, to have some sort of online business. And there's a lot of different people I know that have various businesses. Some people are selling products online through subscription services. Some people are selling on Amazon. I have a small company that does marketing for other companies, but there's a lot of ways to structure it. But if your goal is to be able to travel and to have time, you could always structure your business in that way. So, I have a lot of very successful friends that are all making a ton of money, and, their goals from their business was to make a lot of money. So that's what they're achieving. At the same time, if your goal is to have a lot of time and to have a lot of freedom, you could also achieve that goal. There are some downsides to it, and I don't want to make it seem like it's all perfect and rosy. The biggest downside is that it's hard to grow your business while you're traveling. If you want to grow a business, you have to concentrate on it. You have to put in a lot of work. And if you're traveling, you don't really want to do that. Like, yeah, I could work right now, and I could sit down and I could hustle, but I want to go to this next town and there's 2 volcanoes. I want to rent a motorcycle, drive around, and then I want to hike one of the volcanoes. So my desire to do fun shit is usually higher than my desire to work, which means that growing the business is usually takes a back seat. And the business is more there to sustain my travels, which it's good enough for me. And that's what I meant by your desires. Like, what are you willing to kind of compromise on, and where are you willing to sacrifice? And for me, okay, I'm going to sacrifice maybe income opportunity for fun at the moment. I could change it, and that's the beauty of having your own business, is that you could change it. But do you want to? Like, what is your goal? But if you really just want to travel, definitely possible. It's not difficult. It's really inexpensive. And if this video is interesting, let me know, and I could kind of make some more videos that go into more detail and more specifics.